I just know I want to subvert the commodification of my relationship to you. Hi, I'm Michelle. This is my so-called handmade life. In the last episode, I asked you if you had ever crafted to make a statement or in any way used your knitting or your crochet to protest or for any form of activism. I didn't think I had, but I remembered I took part in the Sister Survivor blanket project where knitters from all over the world knit squares to be connected and made into a blanket for Rachel Denhollander, who had come forward in the Nasser trials. And so it was drawing awareness to the plight of these women, and also the fact that, rather than protecting them, covering and comforting them, they were suppressed, and hundreds of women were abused. So it was drawing awareness, but also I felt that it was a gesture of love and protection from the knitting community for Rachel and symbolically all of the women. I didn't really think about it so much as activism then as that gesture, but it was. But the term craftivist, Adina reminded me to just look up craftivist because I was looking for Kat Maza. She had a project where she had knitted logos or had different knitters contribute to a blanket with a big Nike swoosh knitted into it. And this was kind of a form of protest. It was bringing awareness to the fact that Nike was using sweatshops and lots of unfair labor practices. I couldn't remember who it was. I couldn't find info on it. So I looked up craftivist, and sure enough, I found everything I needed at that time. And that was around the time I was learning to knit. Kat put out a software called Knit Pro. And I have a link to all of this in the notes, and all the links are always on my blog, which is linked below. She has a software that will take any image or logo and create a knitting chart for it. And then later made one that would take video and create moving stitch charts. It was very interesting. That was for like an art piece called Knit for Defense. So when I hear the term craftivist, I think of recent years, people who feel passionately about some justice issue, bringing those issues and awareness to their community online, be it crochet, knitting, whatever. And that's really an age-old thing, isn't it? Like knitting circles are where people in the community, mostly women, would discuss issues and exchange ideas. I read an article and they were talking about how emancipation was an important topic among women's sewing circles, and communities' thoughts were changed by it. Like women made up a quiet backbone to communities, and women exchanging ideas this way was affecting homes and decisions maybe even men made in the community. I found that interesting. The Tempestry project, that was kind of like temperature blankets that people knit today. It was highlighting global warming. So people knit things in different colors for different temperatures around the world. And it was to show how there's been gradual change or maybe sudden change. And then there were the pink hats that, people knit at the election time, and we would call them the "we don't say this" hats, old blog joke. That's an obvious example of not just getting together as crafters to discuss issues that matter to you, but actually weaving the issue into your project and wearing it. But that era in the early 2000s where Kat Maza was doing these, interesting things with software online, and there was a lot of sharing of ideas and can-do DIY. That's where I learned to knit. It was very exciting because there was correct me if I'm wrong, but those of you who were learning to knit at that time or just already knitting and very active online, and being online as a knitter was still pretty new. in the year 2000. Finding community online was pretty new for a lot of us. I feel like the thrust of it was the community and the free sharing. Tell me if I'm wrong, but there wasn't a lot of product being sold. It was a lot of sharing. There weren't a ton of patterns out, but what you could find were often recipes or things for free. It was the beginning of the indie designer. It was really a neat time. And I wasn't doing it to be provocative or subversive. I literally wanted an anthropology sweater that was like $1 million. And if I was going to have something like that, I would have to learn to make it. So I had one book and all of these forums like Craftster, different blogs, LiveJournal, Blogger, people writing their experience. This is how I did it. And then the next day, oh, that didn't work. Here's what I'm trying now. It was just really experimental, and I could definitely lose hours doing it, but I was really learning skills. Recipes were the thing. And there were like groups forming around making sweaters that look like anthropology sweaters, say, or something so-and-so wore in this movie. Very much the feel of famous knits that I've been, making lately. And my whole point is, I'll do it myself. I don't need a pattern. Let's just do it ourselves or use what we have to make it happen. I've been really trying to reclaim that DIY feeling because I've lost it in recent years. You didn't have to buy a magazine. You didn't have to have a subscription. You could do this anyway. I didn't get into it to thwart fast fashion. I just wanted a thing. But in the process, I did save money. I learned valuable skills. I taught my children that, there's a workaround when you can't afford something or don't know how to do something. Definitely, I imparted a can-do attitude to them. I found community. My sense of creativity exploded. I had a little free therapy there, right? So it was great for me. And on top of that, I did thwart fast fashion, like to the tune of, at this point, what? Am I at 140 sweaters or something? Multiple hats, scarves, things like that. Not that I needed them all. I did become addicted to that workaround, can-do, community attitude. I love it. That's why I make this podcast. But I've had a lot of thoughts lately. In fact, if you go back and look at some of the topics I've discussed all year, look, I keep doing this, I guess mentally I'm thinking it's been this big circle. All year, I've been thinking about crafting community, our ideas of how we relate to one another now, content, AI, and how it affects content, algorithms, big business capitalism versus DIY, the accumulation of too much stuff, marketing. All of that has been kind of going around in my head, and I think I'm finally honing in on what is bugging me, like what I need to do next. Tell me if I'm wrong, but early 2000s was like peak knitting community sharing, right? If you were around then, did you feel like the sharing and community came first, the making money came second? I could be wrong. I'm totally open to being wrong. That's why I'm talking to you about this. I really want to hear your thoughts. And I want to get perspective, not just my perspective. If you answer, I will talk about what you discuss in the next episode where I discuss this. I always do that. That's kind of my commitment to you because I want to have a dialogue. In that early 2000s era, there was no real yarn snobbery that I remember. There was a lot of refashioning. There really wasn't a lot of talk about overaccumulation. So meanwhile, while all that was going on, just hang in there with me. Around the 80s, the logo became a big thing. And it was like a shortcut. It was like a abbreviation for what used to be product info, seal, quality, seal of approval, whatever. Now you just see a logo and you're like, yeah, it's a movement, it's a personality, a culture we want to associate with. And we've internalized capitalism to a point where ad campaigns began to be selling not so much a product that we can use, but a lifestyle that we want to align ourselves with. And so whether we do it intentionally or not, I really think all of us have, to a degree, taken these marketing campaign philosophies and internalized them so that we do see our life a bit as a product. I used to think it was the algorithm that was training us, and the algorithm was suppressing people who didn't title things and format things a certain way. Maybe that's true, but I've decided it's us. It's not AI. It's us. We tend to like what we already know. We tend to like what we think other people like, and we tend to like being sold on a product. There used to be plenty of podcasts where it was just makers talking. But eventually, as they got more viewers, they went into, hey, I can make a business of this, and they're selling a product. And pretty soon, the conversation was, to a minimum, it was mostly shop update. Which is okay. It's fine. But all of us in general, whether it's about knitting or not, would say that we are refining our tastes. But in actuality, we are kind of looking at how many views something has to decide if it's worthy. Looking for things that have buzzwords, catchphrases, trending topics, images that we already know. We're okay with rehash. A lot of people are. That's why you see lots of thumbnails with a collage. You'll see 3 to 6 images, mostly like petite knits. I'm so OD'd on it. I don't think it's the algorithm. I think it's you. I think it's me. I kind of think we don't feel alive unless someone's trying to close us on something. You know, like a product, when someone wants to sell something, they close the deal. I feel like we don't feel like we're alive unless we're in some stage of being closed. Maybe I'm wrong. Give me your thoughts. The reason I enjoyed Ravelry in the beginning and knitting, online knitting, was the community. It was my first priority way back when, and I want it to be now. And I've started to feel a little oppressed by the algorithm, by people saying, well, if you want people to see your videos, you have to do this, this, and this. This is not a poor me. Don't worry, it's not at all. Views are down. I know, because tons of more people in the last 2 years do podcasts, and they might do it better. And that's fine. But I don't want to look at numbers of people watching or responding and think it's reflecting on how true I'm being to what I started this podcast for. Do you see what I'm saying? I want to stick with that feeling of making in a community together. A real community, not one where you pay me to talk to you, but one where you do this, we do this for free. We do this together because I'm not saying I'll never, ever in my life offer a product somewhere, but not this channel. I'm just feeling like my activism needs to be making more videos, less editing, and just rebelling against the trend. If I don't use trending, topics, 5 ways to sell your soul from an expert, will you still tune in? I really want to know. This is like the question. I've asked a bunch of questions. I hope you'll answer all of them, but this is the one I really want to know. You won't offend me if you tell me no. I just know I want to subvert the commodification of my relationship to you. In so doing, I am going to have to work more, like real work, and these videos won't be as edited. They may be long, they may not be, and they may not be well thought out. weird at times. Bad lighting, bad editing, messy hair, my clothing falling off, and I'm just going to keep being me. And I want you to be you. All right, as far as craftivism, Leah was saying there's a lot of debate about environmentalism with your knitting because it can get into a class issue. Like, a lot of people can't afford super environmentally sound yarns, and judging people for what they can or can't afford to use is totally wrong, of course. And it's a minimal impact on the environment compared to other things that are beyond our control. I completely agree with you, Leah. That's very annoying to me. To feel judgment online, I almost feel like any justice judgment online, it frustrates me to know it's probably being typed into an iPhone. We are all complicit with our iPhones. A lot of our tech is made in a not so great way that's horrible for humans. It definitely harms people to be using our phones. So to judge someone over acrylic yarn, to me, is just crazy. I agree with you about that. And on top of that, I think corporations have really enjoyed pushing the burden of changing the environment on individuals when corporate waste, the use of plastics, all these industries, like refining, fossil fuels, but also agriculture, fishing, they produce so much more waste than the average household. But the burden is on us and all the shame and guilt. So as far as environmentalism goes, I have a level I know I can do without driving my family crazy, and I do that level. I still use acrylic yarn. I'm trying to be mindful about it, but if it's going to be a blanket or something that's going to be washed heavily or a gift, I'm probably going to use acrylic. And I'm not going to feel super guilt about it. Leah did say, though, that she feels like making can be a form of protest, especially if you're making sweaters and you're not a traditional size, like on the Fashion Council standard sizing. Making your own thing is like a way of saying, I'm not sure if this is what you mean, Leah, but like making your own thing is like saying, I don't have to live by your standards. I can have this item. I can have it fit me. I can have it look right. And it's your own way of saying, thumbing your nose at the fashion industry that's not very inclusive. If that's what you mean, I get it, yeah. But I also think just making your own thing the slow way, like I was saying, that's my kind of activism. I just want to do things an old-fashioned way, just because I like it. That's creative. It's good for me. It's good for my soul. Karen makes all of her clothing. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. She feels like there's a value to her dollar, and she respects the money and the labor that she puts into these things. And so she does have to spend, making your own clothing does cost more than if you bought something cheap. But you do have the value, you have the quality, and that self-respect. I love that. I don't know how much environmentalism plays in your making of your own clothing, Karen, but I'm pretty sure working around fast fashion and marketing probably plays into it, because I know you really like beating the system that way. I like that. So I think I'm going to use Kat Maza's logo chart maker. I think I'm going to use it for my Duran Duran concert sweater. I'll show you a picture here of, it's a logo, an image for the band from back in the 80s. I want to put it on a white sweater with gray stripes. So just the body will be striped, not the sleeves. I'm going to use Mighty Stitch from Knit Picks because it is washable. It's an acrylic wool blend, so obviously no pretension here that I won't use acrylic, but I wanted this to be kind of sweatshirt-like, and also, I really struggled to find things that were on sale that were these bright colors, exactly the colors of the Duran Duran thing. So here's the main color, and this will be my striping. And then the rest of the logo, these colors. And what I have here is white, sunflower, celestial, and ash. And this is what it will look like. I don't know when I'll do it, but I do believe it will be after the first of the year. And I am just not sure what color work with these, because more intarsia, right? I don't know how they'll look through this white. I may hate it, and I might have to just get more gray and reverse the gray in the white or something. But I just don't think that these would pop as much. I'm really not sure. I just also felt like they wouldn't bleed as bad. I don't know if that's true, but I don't know. Tell me if you think I'm making a mistake trying to run just in areas, you know, when you're doing intarsia and it's moving. Because like one of the D's of the Duran is going to be like at an angle, you know. I might use duplicate stitch for part of it, but for the large D, I just don't know if this will show in the background. We will see. We will see. I've never done such vivid, bright colors, and this is not very me. In fact, this was a little hard to do, and I let my husband help me decide how vivid and true to that 80s aesthetic do I want to go. And he was like, I think you should make it look like Duran Duran. So that's what I'm going to do. That's one of my logo things, and I'm not like trying to like subvert big Duran Duran. I just think it would be fun. Did you notice what I'm wearing? I am wearing my, look at this, it's late, I need to eat. I'm wearing my Wednesday vest. Ugh. All these other thoughts have been in my head all day. I think that was the worst rendition of what I'm trying to say for you guys, but my Wednesday vest, does it not look nice? Very flowy. I did add a little split hem there. And I love this. This is Cascade Eco. It's the Merino Eco. So I told you I thought it was softer than regular Cascade Eco. There's Cascade Ecological and Cascade Eco Merino, and that's what this one is. I did redo the intarsia, and look how much neater it looks on the back. It looks like real people knit it, not a little child. And I'm very pleased with it. It's very comfy. I'm hot right now because it's no longer cold here, but this will be nice when it's semi-cold because it doesn't cover my sleeves. I really like the amount of ease I have here. I could handle more, I could handle less. So that gives me some room to play with, you know. The hormone issues, you know, She Bear said she's here for all that woman of a certain age talk, and that's good because there's been quite a bit of that as far as like health stuff and all. I told you about some of the books I'm reading and stuff that's been happening. I think I told you that restless leg, like I was having restless leg kind of wake me up at night. Since I started doing intermittent fasting, I would say the second month I did it correctly. The first month I messed something up. I was putting cream in my coffee thinking heavy cream, you know, it's okay, it's a fat. And I was putting too much. Even if it's high fat, too much is still too much. So the second month I did it correctly. When the third month started, I noticed that my leg wasn't jerking at night. That was a new thing that started with like perimenopause, like my legs jerking. And I read it's an iron deficiency thing, and I've always been iron deficient. But I didn't want to start taking an iron supplement because I was already having so many stomach troubles, and I didn't want to make those worse. It's gone, so that's really exciting. Sarah was really interested in some of the things I was saying about like diastasis, pregnancy or any kind of pregnancy trauma, which most people don't call like an episiotomy trauma, but you could call it that. And depending on how it's done, it can affect your pelvic floor. It can affect the suspension system and the balance in your lower body. And anyway, she was interested in that, said she was going to check out the book, but she said intermittent fasting had helped her deal with PCOS symptoms. I have heard a lot of people doing an autoimmune diet to tackle that, but not intermittent fasting. So that was really interesting to hear. And it makes sense that my restless leg issue, which I've never had, would go away with fasting. I was going to say though, Sarah, mostly I would hear men talk about it, and I didn't really trust that it was so good for a woman's body, especially at my age, because your parasympathetic system is low, weak. For me, stress easily affects me, and I thought, not eating for long periods of time sounds like more cruelty. I just don't need to put my body through more. But this thing has really helped, like and I actually think my blood sugar, I don't eat a ton of sugar. But when you are kind of insulin resistant, and women around my age can kind of become that, even if they don't eat a ton of sugar, stress can do that too. When you're kind of insulin resistant or not as sensitive to insulin as you should be, fasting can help with that. It keeps you from eating all day, basically, with like high, low. And a lot of people find things that aren't even really high in carbohydrates or sugar can still give them a glucose spike. So the book I was reading was saying wear a monitor. I haven't bought a monitor. I'm not doing that, I don't think. So I do think there's definitely something to it, allowing certain things to be corrected in the body. And she does say in the book that my stage of life right now, it's like a period of 10 years maybe. Once your cycles are kind of unpredictable, it's just really hard to follow intermittent fasting because you'll find you're ravenous one day. And if you force yourself to continue the fast, it might actually be a day where you need to be eating because your cycle's about to surprise you, which has happened. Anna had a good idea though, since I can't do cream in my coffee. At least not at first, or not much. She was saying espresso. They have they call it like the crema that forms. She said it's a good way to enjoy coffee. There's a taste to it that's special, that makes it special, like cream and coffee. That's such a good idea, Anna. And I have an espresso machine. I just didn't want to keep buying the pods to be delivered like online that fit it. I got a kit to retrofit it and make any espresso grind work in it, and I just haven't put it on yet, so I need to do that. Here's something I've been making that I'm super excited about. This is not my official review of this book because I'm going to just keep talking about it. I love this book. This is Mosaic Knitting Workshop by Ashley Wimpy. I'm guessing it's Wimpy, but I hope I'm not saying it wrong. I wanted this book. I'm so excited to have it. So here's my progress so far. I am basically almost through one repeat of the little cactus kind of landscape. Isn't this awesome? This is so much fun. I basically did this during 2 Equalizer movies. Or 1.5. Denzel, The Equalizer. It was pretty disappointingly violent. And honestly, it wasn't that great. I thought it would be less gross because, I don't know, I see Denzel as like your neighbor, like a sweet guy. I didn't think it would be quite as violent as it was. But anyway, nothing to do with this blanket. I think this was so much fun. And I used Rainforest. This is a Lion Brand Woolies color, which is like a blue-green. And this one is Serenity, and it is Mandala Ombre. This feels so smooth and soft. And honestly, this does too. And I think the two together, this is really making a soft blanket. I'm very excited about this. Like, I don't want to put it down. It's so much fun to work on. And it's been hard for me to focus and do other things too. I might make fun of YouTube trends, but I don't know if I want to do them on purpose. I probably do them not on purpose. So my question to you is, if I don't follow trends, if I just do what I do, turn on the camera, don't worry too much about editing, don't worry about tricky thumbnails, will you still watch? This is not a poor me. Don't worry, it's not at all. Views are down